This is Beyond Perception, where it's all about breaking out of a limited understanding, a limited perception on life, and waking up to a human nature, our true self, and to our connectedness with all life. I'm Simon Rilling, and I have the true pleasure to be here today with Dr. Chase Faldmo. In 2008, he recovered from a chronic illness that led him on a path of healing from the ground up or cellular level in his terms. And fast forward 10 years, he began working alongside the doctor that saved his life at age 17 by the name of Dr. Tennant. And throughout his years of practice, he's been blessed to receive training from world-renowned specialists in their field, including resetting the lymphatic system, awakening the brainstem, awareness of infection in the teeth and airway issues, along with retraining cranial nerves, correcting perinatal reflexes, and co-founding a cutting-edge toxin clearing therapy. And Dr. Chase strives to find the root cause of each individual and provide them the tools of healing independently. And he often says, as I can confirm, I teach my patients how to fish, to feed, heal them for a lifetime rather than relying on me. So welcome, Dr. Faldmo.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
Yeah, so I believe a couple of weeks ago, I recorded an incredible podcast with Scott Tennant, who is the son of Dr. Jerry Tennant, the founder of the Tennant Institute and also author of Frequencies Healing. And he introduced me to you. And in the meantime, I had two consults basically with you where I was about looking into issues I'm experiencing, back pain, possibly or related to a motorbike accident I had 20 years ago. And these conversations again were so revealing, insightful, and also outside the box and beyond what I knew. And as a context, I've been on a quest for 10 plus years and tried and did so many modalities and therapies and many searches, etc. But this conversation or these consults, again, they were so revealing. And I was introduced to a lot of really good information and also solutions, and that I'm really excited to have you here today and share more about what you're doing with the audience. And I mentioned in the introduction briefly, and before we talk about what it is exactly what you're doing and why you're pioneering healthcare, I would love, if you like, you to share a little bit with us what led you on this path beyond conventional approaches and finding and working with Dr. Tennant. Yeah?
Absolutely. Love to share this. So when I was 16 years old, I had a routine hernia surgery. It was just a routine surgery, shouldn't have any complications from it, and it went well. But after the surgery, I was given painkillers and anti-inflammatories, and that ended up burning large ulcers in my stomach. So to try to correct that, they gave me more meds, and to make a long story short, I lost 50 pounds. Organs started shutting down. Went to all the best doctors across the country on paper, and none of them could help me. They did every single test possible. We even called the Mayo Clinic, which is one of the renowned ones here in the United States, and they basically said, yeah, you've been to some of the ones that trained us. They did the same test we would have done. Good luck. So I was near the end. I was lucky to be alive, and I heard about someone by the name of Dr. Jerry Tennant. And when I first heard about Dr. Tennant, I heard that he was a world-renowned ophthalmologist at one point, and it still is. And I thought to myself, what? I'm going to be going to an eye doctor when I got all these organ problems? What's that for? That always gives me a good laugh that I thought that at the time. So when I went to Dr. Tennant, a couple days before I saw him, my heart rate was only 36 beats a minute, which is actually hardly a thing. You want to be at least 60 beats a minute. 36 beats a minute is a miracle I was alive. Then the day I saw him, my blood pressure was only 80/40. So, which is really, really low too. Just a miracle I was alive. I went to Dr. Tennant. I found out some of my root causes. I used his protocol for about 2 weeks. And then within a year, I was completely better after being sick and almost dying for 2 years. So I've seen firsthand how these principles work. And if there's hope, if there's hope for me, there's hope for anyone.
Well, that's incredible, incredible. Hard to believe, but story. It sounds incredible, and so that then also led you on that path to. I believe you're a chiropractor too. To
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So once I got better, obviously it was a life changer for me. I wanted to do this type of work, what Dr. Tennant did for healing people. So I looked into different schoolings, and chiropractic is what I was led to. So I graduated from school and I came actually right to the institute. I was blessed that they had an opening, and so now I'm here. I've been here since that day.
that's incredible. And you mentioned before that within just a short period of time, you noticed a change in your well-being, basically. And you mentioned that that it was about principles. um, and can you share a bit about like also your concept of health or the principles like leading to a healthy life, if that makes sense to phrase it that way, right?
Absolutely. So, one I think the shortcomings of our current healthcare system, at least here in the United States, is that our healthcare system has made people grow a dependence on, practitioners or pills or you name it. There's people are growing a dependence. And so what I like about everything about what we do and these principles that Dr. Tennant uses is that we want to teach you these principles, and these are tools and resources you can use from your very own home so you can heal at home so you don't have to depend or rely on anyone. And that's the other thing that I just love about this type of work is that you don't have to be dependent on anything. You can heal from your own home. It's just beautiful.
And that for me that leads to certain understanding of our nature, you know? Like if you listen to maybe conventional medicine or mainstream information, it's just natural to become sick. Yeah, at some point there are like diseases we have in our civilizations. It's just natural that we're experiencing them, and once we're experiencing them, we fix them. We go to whatever doctor or so to get some medicine to recover from those diseases. But if you say like basically we don't need much, we just need to know certain principles, that would also imply that maybe that understanding is not 100% correct, or like.
Right.
And and I mean that's obviously the thing I found really really interesting when we had our first conversation. And you basically told me that my body is a battery. And yeah, I mean, I've heard before that we're electromagnetic beings and that everything is somehow frequency and etc. But I never really put it together in like to understand that I'm I'm a battery, and if that battery, like that was what I got from the consult. So that if the battery is not working properly, then that manifests as pain or disease. So that was what I got. I don't know if that's the right understanding. How would you how would you describe like what's the underlying cause ultimately of disease or pain, and what are the principles we must understand in order to be healthy?
Well, you come to a good point. So we know that the body is self-healing and regenerating. So it all starts at the cell. Our cell is our most basic unit of our body. Our cells make up our tissues make up our organs make up our entire system. So your cell is one of your foundations. So, what does it take to make a new cell that works? Well, we know that your cells actually need certain pH, and pH is the measure of something that's like alkaline or acidic, but you can actually correlate it more closely to voltage. which is the measurement of electrons. So all chronic disease and pain occurs when you lose that ability to make a new cell that works. So if you can get the cell to work, if you can give it the energy it needs, then it can heal. I'll do a little share with you here.
Yeah, let me.
Okay. So what does it make to, what voltage does a cell need? We know that cells are designed to run at minus 25 millivolts. We say minus 25 because, again, voltage is the measurement of electrons, and electrons are actually negative in nature. So the cells need to have enough energy to run at minus 25 millivolts. In order to make a new cell that works, this voltage needs to double. It needs to go from minus 25 up to minus 50. And so this is a really interesting chart I really like. When we have good voltage, when our cells are around minus 25 millivolts, we feel good. We start to get tired when this voltage drops to minus 15 millivolts. You can get sick at minus 10 millivolts, and you get all of these different diseases you can see listed here are pain, disease, infection, anytime you have low voltage. So in order to heal, we need to go from minus 25 to minus 50 millivolts. Let me give you an example. Maybe you can see. If I was to measure the voltage of my thumb right now, it should be around minus 25 millivolts. If I hit my thumb with a hammer, it gets red, inflamed, and swollen, right? Like that thumb you see there on the left. Well, you measure the voltage that should be healing properly, it should go up to minus 50 because it's healing. Then, when it heals and goes back to normal, it should be about minus 25 millivolts again. But if I don't have enough voltage in my system, it'll stay at around anything below minus 20 millivolts, and that's when you get chronic disease and pain. And that can come in the form of, cancer, autoimmune disease, arthritis, you name it. So anytime you get low voltage, you get a state where your body can't renew and reheal. So back to the cells. Our cells are constantly wearing out, and we're having to make new cells that work. And each part of our body has different regeneration rates. So if we look at our GI system, our gastrointestinal system, that has to more frequently regenerate because we're always eating food and it's constantly being worn down. That has in the colon that repairs itself every 3 to 4 days. Whereas other parts of our body might take a little bit longer to heal, but they can still heal. Such as we see fat cells, it takes 8 years to heal them. So different parts of the body get different regeneration rates, but the important principle to know is that the body can heal. You just got to give it enough voltage to heal. This is another great chart I love, just showing different regeneration rates of the body. Your skin rebuilds itself in 1 month, DNA in 2 months, liver in 6 weeks. So there's just different regeneration rates. We just got to give it the voltage it needs. Okay. Now, this is the common theme I say. All chronic disease and pain occurs when we lose the ability to make new cells that work. So for a cell to work, we not only need the voltage, but these cells are actually made of materials, and that's where good nutrition comes in. If we have bad nutrition, we're not going to be able to make a new cell that works either. So just as important as voltage is having the proper nutrients. When you think about the body, there are multiple rechargeable batteries in the body. So one of them, this is a great chart here, one of them is our muscles. When we move our muscles, we're generating electrons. Our muscles are actually what's known as piezoelectric. That's what makes movement and exercise so healthy. When I exercise or I'm moving my muscles, I'm generating electrons. These electrons go through and they go through this layer of tissue called the fascia. Fascia is what covers the muscle. For anyone who's eaten turkey or chicken, when you take a chicken or turkey apart, it's that shiny layer of tissue. That's the fascia. The fascia is a semiconductor, and that's what one of the ways voltage travels through the body. And this goes to actually different organs in different parts of your body. So that's one of our rechargeable batteries in our body. The second one is our cell itself. Our cell, if you look at that outside layer there, it's actually a battery. You go inside the cell, there's this thing called mitochondria. Mitochondria generates ATP. That's like little rechargeable batteries of our body. And then at the very core of the cell, we have our DNA. And our DNA contains its own battery as well. So our body and our systems have been set up that we have multiple layers of rechargeable batteries. So long as we have enough voltage, the body can heal, repair, and renew itself.
That's yeah. I mean, you told that before to me, and it sounds very logical. It sounds also so simple. So yeah, the question comes to mind, and I don't want to interrupt you here. Like, why is nobody else talking about that? Yeah.
Well, I think there have been different. You have to go back. If you study some of the ancient civilizations, they all really had these principles down. They just didn't have the scientific advancements like we have today to be able to put an actual name and number to things. So, an example, acupuncture. Acupuncture was used for thousands of years, still used today, and it uses great principles. What they called chi. Many people have heard of chi. Well, chi is nothing more than another word for voltage. You look at medicine and Ayurvedic medicine out in India. I believe they use the term prana. Prana, kind of like chi, that was their way of describing energy. And so the nice part is everything we've tried to do, we've tried to bridge that gap between Eastern and Western medicine. And so we've been able to find that common theme of voltage. So other people have talked about it, but it's a matter of putting it together. And I'm so grateful for Dr. Tennant and all the work he's done, as well as everything else that ourselves we've all put together to be able to bridge that gap between Eastern and Western medicine. So it's starting to be discovered, and little by little, it's getting out in the open. So probably one of your next questions is, why does the voltage drain in the first place? Well, there are several reasons why we see voltage drain in the first place. And just as important as the principle of we know that the body needs voltage to heal, we also need to know why the voltage dropped in the first place. And this is one of the keys that a lot of people are missing. We're going to go to another chart here as to our why. Now, there are 5 reasons why I see voltage drop in the body. And one of them is from our teeth. Our teeth are like our circuit breakers of our body. And so you've probably been in your house before, and you go into a room, you turn on the light. Oh, no, you try to flip the switch, that light won't turn on. You go to try to plug your phone into that same room. Oh, the phone's not charging either. So something's obviously wrong with your electricity. You go to your circuit breaker, and sure enough, one of your circuits is flipped. So what does that in our body are our teeth. Each tooth is run by different circuits in the body. And so each tooth correlates with, when I say circuits, that's our modern term for saying different organs. So each tooth runs under its own circuit or organ. So our wisdom teeth are pictured here in green. Those circuits are influenced by your heart, your small intestine, and your autonomic nervous system, which consist of your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Our molars on top are run by our stomach and spleen and pancreas. Our premolars on top, lung, large intestine. Canines, liver, gallbladder, and then the front four teeth, top and bottom, are kidney and bladder. So what happens in our teeth can play a significant role in the health of our body because our teeth are circuit breakers. So the reasons why we see teeth have problems is that anytime you get decay in the mouth, it acts like a resistor and it lowers the voltage. So the more severe infection you have, the more it acts like that circuit breaker in your body. And you see that in several cases. One of them is from root canals. So what is a root canal? What a root canal is when you drill through the teeth and you remove the arteries, nerves, and veins of the teeth, you're taking away a blood supply and an electrical supply from the nerves to living tissue. When you do that, you've taken away its energy and resources. And what happens is in the dentin, there's still living tissue there. And because you've taken away its blood supply, the tissue dies, the tooth dies, and this infection ends up spreading into your jawbone, and it creates something called a cavitation, which lowers your voltage significantly. This can also occur when you pull a tooth. When you pull a tooth and they've left the ligament in, that ligament requires a blood supply, but if you've left that ligament in, the tissue dies, and this infection spreads to the jawbone, which will lower your voltage.
I believe that's what happened to me, and I'm just commenting that because I believe it took something like 25 years to recognize that. The conventional dentists, they don't know that diagnosis. And just by pure accident, coincidence, I stumbled upon a biological dentist who diagnosed that. But then I had no context if this is a valid diagnosis or just a business model, like to have me buy into an expensive treatment. And I wanted to validate that with other dentists, and they all confirmed, no, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist until just recently when I got introduced to someone else who I had trust, and he confirmed that diagnosis. And now also with that context, it makes so much more sense. And I'm just commenting that because it's not common knowledge in medicine, right?
Well, and one of the reasons why it's not common knowledge is, I think one of the shortcomings we've had in healthcare in general is that they try to separate the body into distinct parts. Well, our body is one whole, and you got to look at the big picture. And so, many dentists miss some of this. I'm going to discuss why further, but a part of it is that when we separate the body into parts, it's just not useful. Our body is one big body, and it's all connected. What happens up here can have effect on your feet, And so that's a great comment there, Simon. And here's why dentists are often missing it. One of the images a lot of standard dentists use is a standard dental x-ray. So it's kind of like this picture down here on the bottom left. That's an example of a standard dental x-ray. So in a standard dental x-ray, that's a two-dimensional image. When you have an image like that, which is what most dentists take, you need more than 50% bone loss to catch any infection. And so the ultimate imaging that I believe that should be used more often is this image found on the right called a 3D cone beam scan. So you see how detailed that image is compared to this. It's significantly more detailed. With this type of image, a 3D cone beam scan, dentists can go above, down, inside out. It's three-dimensional. And so it's quite frequent where we have patients come in who've had, those root canals or teeth pulled, and they go to their dentist and the dentist says, "Oh, it looks fine. There's nothing in there." And then they take the 3D cone beam and they say, "Oh, there's someone else." They go to someone else, they take a 3D cone beam scan and they find infection. And then once they find that infection, for those viewers who might get a little queasy, I'll just show you a picture here. You already saw it, but wanted to give you a little warning. When they open up some of these infection spots, they find all this infection in here that was not showing up in the standard dental x-ray. It only showed up in the 3D cone beam scan. So not only is it important to identify and remove the infection, but once you remove the infection, you want to be able to help the area heal properly. So a great way to help the area heal properly is using something called ozone and platelet-rich fibrin, which are essentially stem cells. Once they pack that in the places where there is infection, the area will heal so that there's no more voltage draining from that tooth. So that's known as a cavitation. Now, this should hopefully be common knowledge little by little, and more people are getting exposure to this. This was a study done in Japan where they did root canals in wisdom teeth, and they took images, and after they did the root canals, they found later all this bacteria. And so this is found in the research, and this should be researched more. And this is a significant amount of bacteria that invaded the teeth. So, the good news is, again, it's coming to the limelight. Not only do people need to know about it for their own health, but we need to train more people the proper way to identify and address this so this doesn't happen to people in the future. Now, back to some of the principles we talked about is when we look at the body, we're looking at the voltage, right? And there are different battery packs in our body. I want to make a connection here. So when we talked about the fascia earlier, the fascia is one of the ways voltage travels through the body. And each of these muscle groups is covered by different fascia. So for an example, all these muscles that are highlighted here, all these muscles are covered by the same fascia, and they help charge our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our nervous system that helps our body rest and digest. When you look at your sympathetic system, which is a different part of your nervous system, if you see these muscles, they're highlighted, they're different from the previous ones they've seen because they are the different battery pack of the body. And so when you have low voltage in here, it'll affect the sympathetic system. And each organ system has their own set of not only muscles that it influences, but also organs. So an example is the stomach. Here, these muscles are influenced by our stomach circuit because they're all covered by the same fascia, but special branch goes to the thyroid, goes to the breast for females, and goes to the genitals for males. So when you have low voltage in the stomach circuit, not only can these muscles be affected, but these different organs can be affected too. So here's the connection to dental. A lot of the patients we've seen that had breast cancer will either have a root canal or a tooth or infection or maybe a metal filling in the top molars and the bottom premolars, because the circuit that runs that is the stomach circuit where the breasts are. So when you know this voltage piece and you know the dental connection, you can find various root causes as to why people get chronic disease and pain in the first place. Now, what else causes low voltage? Well, another source of low voltage occurs from scars. Now, anytime you get a scar, whether it's from a trauma, like you get a surgery or you get stitches from something, or even tattoos can act like scars, is what happens is when they put a scar across an area and it goes through the fascia, which is one of the ways voltage travels in the body, that is like cutting a power line. When you've cut a power line, there's no energy going through. So what we've discovered is there's ways to test whether or not your scars, whether it be from surgery or trauma, are affecting your system, as well as tattoos. So why do tattoos do this too sometimes? In tattoos, sometimes the carbon in the ink will go and it'll block the fascia, acts like a blocker to the circuit. The good news is you don't have to remove the tattoo to get this fixed, but you got to figure out whether or not this is blocking your circuits and you got to fix it. So an example here is a C-section. For women who've had C-section, when they cut through here, it cuts the fascia, which decreases the voltage in that system, which can cause them to have low voltage in their stomach circuit. And this can change depending on the part of the body. Luckily, over time, your body can reconnect that electrical wire that was cut. There was just no energy going through. We use technology using something called the biotransducer with the biomodulator to help get energy back through in that area again. So that is another source of low voltage. Or another cause, I should say. The other one I see often is thyroid problems. Luckily, Simon, for you, I know you're out in Europe. Europe, for the most part, has more clean practices than what we have here in the United States. But there have been so many toxins in our environment, in our water, in our air, that it's really affected our thyroid hormones, because one of the things that our thyroid uses is iodine. And why thyroid is important for our voltage is that thyroid will dictate the amount of ATP is in your mitochondria, which is one of the little battery charges of our body. So thyroid problems are very frequent because of not only the toxins that our bodies get exposed to, but a lot of our diets are very deficient in iodine. Now, the last piece, or the second to last piece that's very important that influences voltage is emotions. Now, why are emotions important? Well, when we get traumatic events in life, everyone gets traumatic events. Things can be physically traumatic, mentally traumatic, emotionally traumatic. When we get these traumatic events in life, these emotions get stored in these magnetic fields in our body, and they create a voltage block, and they get stored in our circuits. So different emotions can affect different organs. So I love this chart here. Anger will affect your liver and your gallbladder. Fear will affect your kidney and your bladder. Worry will affect your spleen and your stomach. A lack of joy will affect your heart and small intestine. Grief will affect your lung, large intestine, and anxiety will affect your sympathetic and parasympathetic system.
Just one comment there. When I'm looking at the image, the location is exactly where the energy centers are, the chakras, right?
Exactly. And
Energetical body.
so, yes, just like we talked about before, these ancient civilizations and cultures knew about this. And so you looked at the muscle batteries that I showed you before with the different circuits, like your stomach and your parasympathetic and sympathetic, how they're different parts of the body. Again, all those muscles are connected by the same fascia, and they actually follow the acupuncture lines. And so, yeah, and then chakras is another one. It's an ancient modality, but they were correct. These are places where the voltage has influence in the body. So, yeah, very good point. Now, when we get these emotions caught, we get them caught in something called our biofield. What the biofield is the biofield is surrounded, it surrounds us. It goes about 5 or 6 feet out. We can't see it, but it's there. Some of the researchers have actually found you can measure heart rate up to 5 or 6 feet away, but no more. It's because they're measuring the heart rate from the biofield. This is one of the areas that emotions can get caught. And you know what? What's interesting about the biofield, I love this analogy. Many of you have probably been in like a store or been somewhere and you haven't ever talked to this person, you haven't touched them, but you can feel their energy. The reason you can feel their energy is you're feeling it in their biofield. You don't have to touch the person or talk to them. You can feel negative energy from people because all this information is stored in the biofield. Now, one of the techniques that my colleague named Ileana Ceballos does is these emotions act like static in the biofield. And so you can use sound and you can hear where the static is occurring, and you use sound to retune this emotion into being just a memory. So an example I have that I've seen from people is I know people who've had a traumatic car accident where every time they would drive past the place of their car accident, they would get almost physically sick because the memory and the emotion of that memory was getting caught in their biofield and it was stuck there. They go and they retune this emotion into being just a memory. The next time they pass the place of their car accident, they still have memory of their car accident, but it doesn't make them physically sick because the emotion has been retuned into being just a memory.
And here, out of curiosity, is that, I mean, like, we all experienced to some extent emotional trauma in our lives. That's a kind of part of the human experience. So with this approach or this modality, can you release all emotional trauma, or is this tied to specific trauma from accidents or a specific situation? Or like when you say you can measure, or you can see the static in that biofield, like literally you can see all emotional trauma.
Well, you can't see it, you can hear it, and you can hear it in the sound. So one of the things that I should discuss a little bit about is something called polarity. Let me back up here.
And like another question, when you speak of a biofield, is this torus-like form or energetic field we have around us? Is this a biofield or?
Yes, that torus of energy around us is the biofield. So one of the things that has not caught up, not all the scientific devices for measurement have caught up yet. I look forward to the day when we're able to actually pinpoint like where exactly in the biofield using actual visual we'll be able to find these caught energies. But at the time, we at least know that you can hear it through sound. And so when my colleague, when she does this work, when you go through the biofield, there'll be a traumatic event. It has a different sound to it. For some people, it's overly loud. For some people, it's low. But when you correct it with sound, you see the sound improve in it. And so there hasn't been a way to actually visually see the biofield, but that's one of the ways we discovered that this works is through the changes in sound. And there's something we check called polarity. So when our body is essentially a big stack of rechargeable batteries, like I have here. When the voltage drops to 0 on this battery, what happens is the polarity flips. This battery, the plus and minus end, flip upside down. So if I was to measure the voltage, or if I was to try to charge this battery with the polarity being flipped upside down, it would not hold a charge. So one of the ways that we can measure polarity is through this. In the presence of electrons, metals, crystals, or a platonic solid such as a sphere will spin. So this part of the battery is one of the parts where voltage is coming out. If you can see my screen here, if I need to stop the screen share, I can.
Yeah, maybe that's the best. Yeah.
If you see my screen here, again, when the voltage drops to 0, the polarity of the batteries in our body flip upside down. So if I was to try to charge this battery, it wouldn't hold a charge because the battery's upside down. Just like the batteries in a flashlight. If you put batteries in a flashlight and one of them's upside down, it's not going to work like it should. So one of the ways we measure polarity is through this thing. In the presence of electrons, again, crystals, metals, or platonic solids can spin. So when I hold this over this part of the battery, electrons are coming out of. When I hold this over here, it spins clockwise. This is the part of the battery where electrons are being stolen or sucked up. When I measure it over here, it goes counterclockwise because the polarity is flipped. So that's one of the other ways we found that you can find this biofield is you can go in the biofield and actually locate. This will start going counterclockwise. And then when you fix it through the scalar energy, using either scalar energy or sound, it goes from counterclockwise to clockwise. That's when you know the polarity has been corrected and the emotion's been retuned into being just a memory.
So you would use or hold the sphere above someone's head and then check in which direction the sphere is turning. And
Exactly.
that's how you would say, like, okay, like here the polarity is flipped, or
exactly. And so that's how you can check polarity at the body. And the beauty of it is, again, it's something you can do at home. And in some of our trainings that our sister company Synergy does, we teach you how to check polarity. And once you figure out which polarities are flipped or which voltage is low, there's ways to correct it, which I'll discuss later. But we also want to figure out why the voltage dropped in the first place, that created the voltage to drop in the first place, that caused the polarity to flip. So the emotions are the other aspect of it. Now back to the emotions there. Hopefully that gave us some more clarity. in regards to polarity.
Super
But
interesting.
when they go in, they can retune this emotion into being just a memory. That way it's not a voltage drain anymore. So the final category I often see low voltage in is toxins, which is one of my specialties. Every mineral and metal in this world has its own frequency it runs under. So this is a technology called spectrophotometry. This was first discovered by NASA. When NASA was first studying the planets, they didn't know, they didn't know what some of these planets were made of because we didn't have someone there or a ship there to measure. So because each mineral and metal emits its own frequency, you can figure out what frequencies are there. So that's why they were able to figure out, oh, Mars is made of these minerals and these metals. Venus is made of this, so on and so forth, because each of these planets was emitting certain frequencies of light. The toxins in our body will do the same thing. And that's also for those of you who are, I don't know if it's on Netflix or not, CSI, but those of you who are CSI fans, they can figure out what people were poisoned with using spectrophotometry. So because we know that each toxin has its own frequency, we can use that against them. Let's say this wave A right here is the frequency of the toxin. What we've been able to do is we've been able to digitize remedy frequencies to toxins like the blue wave. When you introduce the blue wave to the red wave, you see how they're opposite? It cancels out the frequency of this toxin, which could do several things. If it's a microbial toxin like a virus or bacteria, it could kill it off. Or they studied E. coli bacteria and actually found that they communicate via AM/FM radio waves. I believe every virus and bacteria has that capability. So this could kill them off, or it could jam their communication signaling. Or they discovered that each virus and bacteria surrounds itself with a shield known as a biofilm. Biofilm, it's like a shield. It blocks the immune system from seeing it. And it's like its little hideout for these viruses and bacteria. So this could also be a biofilm or shield buster by putting reverse frequencies in. The other way this could work for chemical, metal, or airborne toxins is that, let's say my hand here is a cell. Some of these toxins act like a magnet to our cell, and that's why they stay stuck in there, and it lowers our voltage. Well, in order to demagnetize something, you put a reverse frequency in. It'll demagnetize it. That way your body can take care of the rest. So what you kind of talked about earlier, Simon, I liked you said, is that these are principles. Once you look at the body from a frequency perspective, as well as toxins, you can use frequencies against them. And that's the beauty of all this.
That also implies that if everything is frequency, everything has a certain frequency, every disease has a certain frequency, but then also every disease can be possibly reversed by having the right adequate counter frequency.
Correct. And so that's the other important part, as what you need to do to correct this low voltage, right? You want to discover your root causes of why the low voltage is occurring, and then you want to go in and you want to correct it. So just like this chart shows, these are the most common issues why I see voltage drop in the body. And when the voltage drops, it flips the polarity of the batteries in our body. So there are two things in this world I've seen that can correct polarity, meaning
let me just ask you, what are the two most common reasons for a drop in voltage?
The two most common reasons in my eyes are dental infection and emotions. Those are the two most common I see. But for everyone, everyone's different though. Some people have one of the categories, some people have all of them, and not everyone has every single one, but these are the most common causes we've pinpointed for low voltage in the body. Now, in order to flip this battery into the right position or correct the polarity, two things I've seen that can do this. One of them is something called a transducer. A transducer uses a waveform known as scalar energy. So there are two different waveforms in this world. There's electromagnetic energy and there's scalar energy. Electromagnetic energy is basically what everyone's using man-made right now, but scalar energy is an advanced waveform. They actually do believe they used it anciently. If you go inside some of the pyramids of Egypt and you look up, some of those pyramids don't have any evidence of any soot from smoke. You know, when you burn a fire and it turns a chimney or turns the wall kind of a brown or black color, some of those pyramids don't have evidence of that. Well, if they didn't burn fire to see and they didn't have windows, how in the world did they see inside the pyramids? They now think they had their own lighting sources using scalar energy, because you look at some of the murals in Egypt and people are holding what looks like a light bulb. So they were far more advanced than we might give them credit for. Plus, it's amazing how long some of those pyramids have lasted, even to our day. Another person who used scalar energy, many people know about, someone by the name of Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla, he created alternating current. We wouldn't have our modern electrical systems without him. But after he developed that, he used scalar energy. He called them non-Hertzian waves. And they say he developed free power for the whole world using it. But those who were investing in him, it wasn't of their best interest, so that got lost. So what scalar energy does from the biotransducer is a waveform more like this. What it does is it corrects polarities. And so that's one of the ways polarities get corrected. I've also seen that different blends of essential oils can correct polarities as well. But healing the body doesn't end at just correcting polarities. Once we've corrected the polarities, we need to increase voltage so that the body and cell can heal. And so that's where you need electromagnetic energy. So one of the things that Dr. Tennant invented is something called the biomodulator. And what the biomodulator does is it sends healing frequencies into your system, but it's like a computer. It reads how your body responds to it, and it adapts how the frequencies are sent in based on your body's needs, which will charge the battery up. I think of it like a jump starter for your car. If your car has ever come in with a dead battery, you need a jump start, the biomodulator can be a great jump start for people. But there's other ways you can increase voltage in your system as well. One of them we discussed earlier, movement and exercise. When you're moving your muscles and you're exercising, you're generating electrons to help go to some of your organs too. Another way is, go ahead.
I mean, before having met you, I would have thought like exercising is using my energy. I'm expanding my energy, but that seems not to be like an accurate understanding.
No, I know, and that's a common misconception. But
I'm burning calories, so like I'm losing body fat, and like that would be like possibly the understanding of most people, no?
Yep, and absolutely, and that's what's amazing is that once you understand this knowledge, and I think that's one of those common misconceptions. And I believe it's a way to maybe give people an excuse not to exercise. But in my eyes, exercise is so important for not only increasing your voltage, but it's also great for your lymphatic system, which is your sewage system in your body. So hopefully this gives people some extra motivation to get out and get some kind of movement. Now, another way I've seen that voltage increases is putting your feet in the grass and dirt. I call it God's way of charging. Some people call it Mother Nature's way, but we wouldn't have life on this earth without lightning. When lightning strikes the earth, electrons go into the earth. So when we put our feet barefoot in the grass and the dirt, that's one of the other ways that charges up our system. The only hard part about this is I know you might live close to snow. For those who are in the winter time, it's kind of hard to put your feet in the grass and the dirt, right? So that's why we come up with other means and resources to help recharge your system and jumpstart your dead batteries.
Yeah, I think the majority, at least I'm living in Switzerland, the majority of people here probably would not walk barefoot.
Right. Yeah. I know I couldn't do it up there, but I'm just a warm-blooded Texan now. So, back to the big picture. What we talked about earlier, our healthcare systems made us rely on pills, on certain things to get us better, going somewhere all the time. But when you look at these principles of low voltage, you can figure out why your body's sick in the first place. You can figure out what to do to correct it, and you can use some of these principles of recharging your body back up so that the body heals. That's what I did. It works for me. And from what I've seen is that these principles of healing can apply to so many different chronic disease and sickness processes across the board. So if there's hope for me, I've seen that these principles can work for anyone.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. And so from what I get, there's a lot we can do. Like, I mean, look at what's happening. What are the contributors to our low voltage right now? And that's probably most of the cases, life circumstances, our environment. But then also there are tools. There is technology which can help us to kind of recharge and from what I understand, that's also something you're using, no? And or Dr. Tennant has developed that like there's technology which you can use to maybe compensate effects which are otherwise too hard to overcome.
And here's an important principle too. This technology, the type of technology it uses, the body never gets used to it. So your body never becomes dependent on using the biomodulator transducer to charge your systems. There's a lot of electrical modalities out there where they send frequency in, but the best thing to do is to have technology that has biofeedback capability, and that's what makes the biomodulator so unique. Your body will never get used to it or dependent on it. It's always going to be healing in nature. And for some people, their bodies absolutely need that. So there's some people who come in so sick, one of the ways we know that charges up the body is through exercise, but there's some people who are so sick, they can't exercise yet. You just got to start here, and slowly but surely you just increase the voltage and they heal, and then they can use multiple modalities to recharge. But the technology is there for a reason, and that's why I'm very grateful to have it. It can be a great jump start.
Super, super, super interesting. So one of the things I have been enjoying with the two consults and also the other conversation with Scott Tennant is that on on the one hand, like a lot of information, but a lot of knowledge, a lot of things I can do for myself, and also, I mean, you shared with me your kind of mission statement to empower people to become self-reliant. And one of the things which, since our last consults, I have been having a lot of fun with, because you've been looking at the state of my cranial nerves, and you've been evaluating them through telemedical consult, like a Zoom session. And instead of prescribing fancy tools or an expensive treatment or so, you offered me kind of a way to rehab my nerves, which was, let's say, it really economic and a lot of fun. Yeah, maybe you can share a little bit about that, because that's also one of the things which might be also a misconception in today, that like we like need like the like some kind of treatment or some like special machines, technology. Otherwise, we cannot do anything. But what you shared with me and what you instructed to me is like, I mean, there's no
Simple.
excuse whatsoever to not do it. Yeah, it's so simple and basic, and it seems so almost a bit ridiculous, to be honest. Yeah,
But it works. It
yeah.
works.
So like maybe you can share that as an example. So how simple it can be. Yeah, to do
Yeah,
the thing.
absolutely. So, I want to give credit where credit's due. So just like Dr. Tennant has founded a lot of these principles as in regard to cranial nerves. One of the experts I've learned from before, who you'll have to meet someday, Simon, her name is Lois Laney. She's out in Arizona of restorative breathing. I learned some of my techniques of cranial nerves from her. So the cranial nerves are very, very important. We got our cortex of our brain. That's our thinking part of our brain. That helps us to go, and that's our thinking part of our brain. Helps us problem solve, you name it. Below it sits the brainstem, and out of the brainstem comes cranial nerves. There's 12 of them. These nerves receive information from the outside world, and based on the information they receive, they send a message out. These nerves are important because they actually fire everyday function: blinking, breathing, swallowing, you name it. Now, a lot of people's nerves are deficient nowadays because of various practices. One of them is we get head traumas, or we get concussions, car accidents, get knocked out. When we get these head traumas, it throws these nerves off. I've seen that toxins can throw these nerves off, braces, which is another random one. They're near drowning experiences. All these things can throw these nerves off.
And we
And when
all,
these,
or,
go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
We also live in a high stress environment, a society
Yep.
which is competitive, and it's about like competing with each other. So there's not really a lot of time to rest in most people's life. And I could imagine that that high stress level is possibly not a good situation for the state of our nerves.
Exactly. And that's another key one. Thank you for bringing that one up. Yeah. High stress kind of goes back to our emotions we talked about earlier. So yeah, all those things can really shut these nerves down so they don't function like they should. And when these nerves aren't functioning right, we don't get enough oxygen in our systems.
Hmm.
Just as important for voltage for healing is oxygen. So if you're not breathing well at night, when you're during the day and afternoon, you're probably conscious about your breathing. But at nighttime, when you're asleep, which is a good time to heal, if you're not breathing right, you're not going to heal like you should. And so an important part of getting your breathing right is making sure these nerves are activated. So one of the techniques I've learned from Lois, who I mentioned earlier, is how to test those cranial nerves. And based on the test, you can give patients exercises they can do to help retrain these nerves so that your body has more efficient energy. Because when these nerves are off, they also play tug of war with each other, which is another energy drain, so that your body doesn't have enough voltage for healing. But when you do these exercises, they train your nerves to fire one at a time, so you're energy efficient, and they help you nose breathe. When you nose breathe, you actually have more oxygen in your system for healing. And when you nose breathe, it actually helps filter out toxins better. People who are mouth breathers, especially people who snore, when you mouth breathe, there are no filters in your mouth. But when you nose breathe, there's multiple filters here. And if you're nose breathing, these filters get filled, your nerves say, oh, okay, you got to build up, you sneeze it out, which is a very healthy response, sneezing. So it not only increases oxygen and helps filter out toxins better, but it also helps with posture. People who are mouth breathers tend to go like this to get more oxygen. Nose breathers, I found, have better posture, which posture is very important for confidence, you name it. Anyway, this technique Lois does is great. I've trained with some people who are trained with someone by the name of Dr. Carrick, who's one of the premier neurologists in the world. And there's so many different devices out there for treating the nerves that are super expensive, time consuming, and costly for the patient. This method that can be done in person or telemedicine, like you said, you can check the nerves. And the beauty of it is you send people the exercises to do, so that way they don't become dependent on you. They can heal from the comfort of their home, which actually saves them money and time, since you don't have to travel somewhere to get your nerves treated. You know, it's a beautiful thing. And that's what I'm all about, is teaching you how to fish so you don't depend on anyone. And that's how healthcare should be, in my eyes.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to being here. And I'm appreciative of your time. And I know we are a bit over time already. One of the things you mentioned with, regarding to cranial nerves and rehabbing them, that, part of this very simple procedure is it's so simple, and that you can do it in a couple of minutes a day, and yes, since I've been given the instructions from you, I've been humming a lot, and I it was so much fun. And just to give a sneak peek, for anyone who wants, I mean, first of all, we will add all the information about you and the modalities and how to contact you to the show notes, so that everybody can learn or contact you to learn more, have a consult, learn about the technology you're providing, working with, and what I wanted to say, because I was having so much fun, is basically your work, you instructed me to use Q-tips, to kind of stimulate my nerves, which while humming, and that triggered kind of interesting responses. I was crying a lot. I had the urge to to sneeze, and it's really, really interesting.
So you want to know why the humming works?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe just 1-2 minutes, a little bit of how easy that is, and what how it works to kind of rehab the nerves from.
Absolutely. So again, this I've seen it works, and this is my theory about why it works. It's not proven law yet, but this is my theory about why it works. When you hum, which is what a lot of these exercises involve, humming is very powerful for your body. Humming, I'll hum right now. Humming actually does several things. When you hum, it runs at about 528 hertz. 528 hertz is the frequency of love and healing. Isn't that interesting? That's why humming is one of the reasons it's powerful. The second reason why I believe it works is when you hum, you're actually generating something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is very important for your system because it's a neurotransmitter. When you hum, you produce that nitric oxide and then you stimulate the nerve that's deficient. That nerve acts like a current and it drives the nitric oxide into the current to help heal it and to retrain it. And then I always have you transition from one nerve to another. When you do that, you create a synapse. There's a term in the nerve world called, our nerves they're like elastic, essentially meaning you can create new nerve connections that work right. And so when you create a new synapse, we're creating new connections that work. And so those are some of the basic principles of it. Again, as you said, it's so simple, and really the body's not complicated. You just got to simplify things and it does miracles.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And a question to you: would you say that no matter where you are, what the state of your health is, or what you have been diagnosed with, there is still something to do? There's always something possible?
Yes, absolutely. That's the number one thing I think people need to hold on to is hope. When I was sick as a patient myself in the past, I tried every single modality possible and they didn't work and it got discouraging after a while.
Hmm.
I think one of the number one things people need to know is that there's hope. And I say it all the time, especially right now. In our world, there can be a lot of stress right now, considering the circumstances. But, hope, you got to have hope. There is hope because the body can heal physically, mentally, emotionally, you name it.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Is there something else you want to share to the listeners, the audience, a message, or to talk about anything you're up to right now?
No, we're always. I'm currently writing a book on toxins. I'm getting really close to being finished with it, and so back to teaching you how to fish in the future. I want to be able to teach people how to do some of these techniques from their very own home. But currently, if you have more questions, you can always visit the Tennant Institute website, or if you got questions as well, you can visit our sister company, Synergy. And there are resources and conferences and educational material that'll fill in some more of these details if you want to come back and review them. But happy to help out whoever I can. So thank you so much for having me on, Simon.
Thank you. Yeah, really a true pleasure, and it has been incredibly insightful again. Thank you for educating us all, and we'll add all the details to the show notes of this episode so that the listeners can follow you, can get in touch with you, and learn more, contact you. And yeah, at this point, thank you so much again, and yeah, to possibly another conversation, another consult in the future. Who knows? Yeah. Thank you very much. It has been
Happy to be
pleasure.
on.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, Simon. Have a good one.